All right, guys. So my hair's messed up again.
Yeah.
I need to get my hair cut. All right, so this one is creating a rotational grazing plan for cows. Here's the picture in the book. And here we go. And this one is by Joel Salatin. All right. Creating a rotational grazing plan for cows. Perhaps the most important planning I do all year is the winter days spent creating a grazing schedule for the following season. This can only happen, of course, if I have a good idea of the previous year's production. Whether you have 1 acre or 1,000, if you have livestock, you need a plan for five reasons. 1, to not overgraze. 2, to leverage the grass you have. 3, to stimulate sward diversity. 4, to reduce pathogens and parasites. 5, to spread manure and urine evenly. None of this has anything to do with scale. It has to do with stewardship and management. The same general rules apply whether you have 2 cows or 1,000. In this column, I'm not going to go into all the nuances of controlled grazing. I want to concentrate on the plan. Just like you spend time creating a garden plan with plots allocated to certain vegetables plus planting dates and harvest preservation workflow, you need a plan for where animals will be during the grazing season. Certainly, this guide will change based on seasonal variations, but at least it offers a roadmap for the overall grazing itinerary. Grass cows in the sigmoid S-curve, Wow, I cannot. Scratch that sentence. Grass grows. What are grass cows? Grass grows in a sigmoid or S-curve. It starts slow, then speeds up, and eventually slows down as it approaches senescence. In addition, it starts slow in the spring, then speeds up with warmer and longer days, then slows down with hotter, drier conditions. It usually has a short period of rapid growth again in the fall with cooler temperatures and adequate moisture. These growth cycles create seasonal fluctuations in the forage inventory, even though your animal's nutritional requirements tend to be steady. Unless you're simply a trader, sell when you have grass, buy when you don't, you'll have a fairly stable need. This stable volume requirement juxtaposed against silvical grass growth presents a dilemma. How do you know how many animals to put where for how long in order to maintain a steady inventory of forage throughout the season and accomplish all 5 objectives listed? This is why a grazing plan is important. In order to plan, you need something measurable. That is why your herd or flock needs to be viewed in increments called animal units, or AU. Convert your hodgepodge of cattle or sheep or goats to a manure animal. I can't read tonight. To a mature animal. In other words, if a ewe, which is a female sheep, is 1 AU, her twin lambs up until a month old, are 1/2 AU. From 1 to 3 months, and from 1 to 3 months are equivalent to 1 AU. After 4 months, they might be 1.5 AU. If you can't get your flock or herd to an objective measure, you can't allocate your forage resources. Using historic production figures in AU, look at the forage growth cycle to determine an approximate number of AU per area at different times of the year. For example, let's assume you have 5 acres total divided into 3 basic fields. Chances are those fields don't yield the same amount of forage. One will generally be better than the other. The AU per acre varies depending on fertility, slope, elevation, aspect, and history. If U is your standard AU, a milk cow would be 7 AU, Normally, a mature cow is equivalent to 7 ewes. Again, that's female sheep. Obviously, if you have 2 stocker calves, half the size of a cow, they would be equivalent to a cow, 7 AU.
How could you say?
1 stocker you're raising for beef would be
Serious?
a 3.5 AU. But once it gets into the finishing stage, 900 pounds or more, it would be 6 AU, not quite a full mature cow equivalent. Without a constant, you can't measure. And if you can't measure, you can't plant. When you're figuring out how many quarts of green beans you need to can for your family to get through the winter, imagine if all your jars were different sizes. How would you know how many jars you needed? Because you use quarts and pints, you can measure and therefore plan your inventory. As you moved your animals through your rotation last season and kept records on AU, you accumulated a production measurement. Field A generated 500 AU when you grazed it in late April, 1,000 AU on the early June grazing, 500 AU on the early August grazing, and perhaps 800 AU on the early November final stockpile grazing. Armed with that information during the planning day in the winter, you can at least ballpark the amount of forage in your standing inventory in different times of the year. Good grazing management would require that you would not simply rotate your animals between 3 fields, but that you would subdivide these basic fields further to drop below 4-day stays. Ideally, you rotate every day, but in extremely small herds that can yield diminishing returns for a lot of effort. For sure, the closer to 1 day you get, the more forage you'll produce and the healthier your stock will be. It also forces them to spread their manure and urine more evenly across the field rather than clumping it in favorite lounge spots. In the winter, you know about how many AU you'll have on March 1st, April 1st, and so on throughout the year. With those projections in mind, and with historical precedent accounted for,
It's more than self-care.
you can designate how many animals will be in what field, when, and for how long. Don't worry about being inaccurate. Ballpark is good enough.
Oh god, my neck hurts. Craving.
Once grass begins to grow and you get busier,
Expect. So give it a try. Mine's 5 she'll find. Swap. There's more to it. Everyone is talking about how Sonobello has revolutionized cosmetic surgery. Our innovative, minimally invasive procedures help you be more beautiful. Robin got amazing tongue-to-tongue-like results with minimal downtime.
sorry.
That's how Jennifer became her beautiful. Sonobello, America's cosmetic surgery specialist. Call or
Once grass begins to grow and you get busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger, you'll be glad you went through the planning process. I'm old school and like pencil and paper to do this. That would be me too. I simply put my fields down the left side of the page and the dates at the top roughly every 5th day. Approximate is fine. By coloring in the squares, I can see quickly if I didn't leave enough rest periods on a field. Rest periods vary every year, but in general, you know when grass tends to grow and when it doesn't. The slower it grows, the longer the rest period or recovery you need before going back to that field. This pre-planned grazing schedule enables you to audit your vegetation progress. And if each year the AU goes down, you know you're reducing fertility and production. If it constantly goes up, which is the goal, then you know you're successful. Too many homesteaders simply turn their animals onto a pasture and when it runs out, turn to a supplemental feed, buying hay. That's a costly and less nutritious protocol than managing the grazing more precisely in order to keep a bank of forage ahead of the animals. And I'm going to try to do it this way, so I'm going to mark this page out for sure. Another important facet of this planning is to consider where the animals started last year and make sure you don't start them there this year. If last year they started grazing in field A, start them this year in field B. The reason for this change up is that different species of forage thrive under different conditions. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some dry, some wet. Seasonal variations encourage some species and discourage others. A truly dynamic and stable sward requires as much vegetative diversity as possible. And yes, that includes things that some folks would consider weeds. If an animal will eat it, I don't consider it a weed. It's just another type of biomass, and it probably supplies a special dietary niche. Enjoy the diversity. Having a multi-year rotation encourages different forage species to mature and make seed. If field A was grazed early this year, graze field B first next year, and come to field A at the end of the first grazing rotation. By that time, plants in field A will have matured and gone to seed. Did get a chance to last year since that field was grazed first. Planning ensures multiple rotations, the rapid one-day or few-day paddock shift, and the long multi-year change-up. If you make hay, ideally those fields would shift from year to year. You could graze a field you made hay on last year and then mow it for hay late in the summer. It would be like a second cutting, but it would only be mechanically harvested once. Whatever you did last year, don't repeat it this year. Nature loves these kind of changes. Fire didn't burn the same piece of prairie every year. Floods don't come at the same place or at the same time every year. Ditto droughts or blizzards. The variability, which appears haphazard, is really a wonderful way to make sure the landscape has different plants and different seeds.
Thank you so much.
I can appreciate that if you've always been a turn them out and let them eat until it's bare kind of outfit, what I've described here sounds overly complex and even intimidating. Blech.
Can't tolerate a lovers. Why is he awake? It's normal for him to sleep after something like this. But he will wake up, right?
But if you start with a paddock, articulate an AU constant and watch the animals for dietary adequacy, you'll soon get the hang of it. Once thinking in AUs becomes part of your psyche, it'll be as normal as a corn farmer talking about bushels and a carpenter talking about inches. You'll never see a field the same way. You'll see it in terms of AU. You'll know how many AU are in your herd. You'll look at your fields like you look at those jars of canned green beans in the pantry. Mentally figuring up how many days of feed you have. As with any skill, planning gets easier and more accurate as you develop mastery. Going into the season armed with a grazing plan is one of the most liberating and empowering things you can do. You can anticipate the new season with confidence, knowing your animals and forage match. Fear of running out of feed is a real downer. Some winter planning can allay those fears and lift your spirits, anticipating the new grazing season. Joel Salatin and his family own Polyface Farm in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. He has authored 15 books and speaks all over the world about agriculture and culture. To keep up with him and the farm, visit www.polyfacefarms.com. That's www.polyfacefarms.com. And that was it for creating a rotational grazing plan for cows. That one was kind of in depth, but I'm definitely going to keep this page marked because I really want to make sure that, especially if we do have, we have horses or whatever, goats, even a dairy cow or two. I want to keep it on that rotational thing. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off from here, get this uploaded. And the next one is meals in mason jars, meal planning from your pantry. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do this one tonight. There's also several recipes in this. Actually, I think I will do the recipes separate. No, I'll just list them probably in the title on the actual video. So, anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and get off from here and get this uploaded, and I will see you guys on the next video. And remember to check your subscriptions. Make sure you're subscribed. Click on the notification bell and hit all so you get all the notifications because I'm really trying to get more videos out. And I will see you guys on the next one. do your research, guys. Do your research, and I will keep you guys up to date on properties and all that. And you guys have a great night. Bye, guys.